Hi, welcome to the Ron and Son podcast. This is Clinton.
And this is Ron.
Welcome to episode 3. We've got a lot in store for you today. We're going to start right off with a story. This is going to be your third UFO alien story from my father, Ron, here. And I know we've had a couple of stories, just to backtrack a little bit. One of them was in Amanda Park, I believe, when you had your business there. You seen with a group of people a spacecraft. And then on your other one, I believe that I can't remember exactly what the other one was.
That's the Flash.
Oh, the
coming
Flash.
On North River.
That's right. You were going through North River Raymond Highway, and it lit up the whole sky. So those ones were more of like experiences with the actual like craft, where this one is an experience that was more alien. This experience, I feel like my dad had an encounter that was closer than just a spaceship. So you were in Spokane heading back home, right?
Yeah, we were at Spokane at the time. There were 3 of us. Clint's mom, myself, and a friend named Chuck used to live with us, and we're coming back from Spokane. It's about 98 degrees, and we're probably about 80 miles east of Moses Lake at the time. So all of a sudden, we're driving down 90, headed back towards Seattle in that direction, and I spot this black figure with an overcoat that's black, everything's black, standing there in the sun, and I pull over.
Just to stop for a second. So was this individual, was he black from head to toe? Did he have any skin tone or anything like that? Could you remember anything?
He had a hat, a big brim hat that was black, overcoat that was black, and he had black boots. And all you could really see was the blackness of this individual. It was like evil black. It was evil.
Could you see his face?
Once he got into the vehicle, we could see his face. He was a Caucasian, but very pointed nose. And I really think that the person may have been a shapeshifter.
Was it during the day or at night?
It was during the day.
Okay.
All of his, you could see him. And I don't pick up hitchhikers. And to be drawn to this person wasn't what I'm a habit of doing, even if they were hitchhiking. So I pulled over, and we asked the gentleman we asked the person, I assumed at that point he was a man, and we asked him into the car. And he asked him where he was going, and he said he's going where we're going. That was basically what the answer was. So he gets into the back, and he slides over to the back seat and sits right in the middle of the rear view mirror, looking right at me in my eyes. And that was kind of like, what's this guy doing? And then he turns to my friend Chuck, and Chuck's got hair down to the middle of his back. And I have probably hair at that time about like what I have now. And he says, "Oh, I see you're hitchhiking too." And then before he could answer, he says, "Oh, you live with these people," which he did. That was kind of freaky, that part of it. And then he started saying statements that were just, they weren't full statements. It was partial sentences. He seemed like he got into my mind, and my mind was going from one place to another, almost like a flash. And it was really strange. And once I talked to the other individuals in the vehicle after this incident happened, he was doing other mind things to them at the same time that he was doing them to me. And time was like that. It was like an instant. So I really don't know if we were in the car the whole time or not, even though it appeared to be. I don't know for sure. But after about 8 miles went by, and in my mind, because that's where most of the communication was happening, I said, if I've got a gun, I'm going to pull it on him right now and tell him to get the hell out. When I thought that, just with the thought in my mind, he says, no one's ever pulled a gun on me before. And I'm going, oh my God, how did he know I thought that? And it was scary. Another 60 miles went by. We're right there at Moses Lake. They got a big park right in Moses Lake, and that was the spot. And Clint's mom got in the middle of the car, close to me, and blocked off the view. So this shapeshifter person, man, whatever, could not have eye contact with me no more. When that eye contact broke, I was able to pull over immediately, and I told him to get the hell out of the car and now. Very forcefully. I was like in a cold sweat. And it's hot, really hot out there. And the person, shapeshifter, individual says, this isn't what we agreed upon. We were going to Oregon, and you're going to see me again when the time comes, and I'm going to be in the back of a train caboose.
I just got total chills when you said that.
Yeah. And I got cold chills too. Right to this day, whenever I see a train, I look towards the caboose. This is about the same time when people were coming up dead down in Oregon. There was some things going on from, I don't know if this is devil worship but it was evil. I took it as a dark side. And like I said, there's good aliens and there's bad aliens. There's good people and there's bad people. And I prefer to deal with the good of all and try to stay away from the bad and not sell my soul to try to get something that I don't have the able to get without being deemed from something of positive light. I'm not going to sell it for dark light to jump the extra step. So that was my story about that. I never look at a train any different. No, I always look at it the same way. Is he there? Is he watching? Or is that individual watching? I've seen him in my dreams since then. I've even dreamed about him.
Wow.
So he's still with me in a sense.
So I wasn't planning on talking about this story actually, but I feel like when you started talking about selling your soul, I really need to tell this story right now. So I had an experience that was similar but different. I was crossing from Arkansas into Mississippi. At the time, I had an ex-girlfriend with me, and we both actually experienced this experience. We were in my RV. It was in 2019 during the summer, right before the pandemic, and I was on tour as a musician. And at the time, I was really soul searching. Like felt like I was turning my wheels as a musician. I just had an opportunity to go play Sweden Rock Fest, and I didn't, so that I could tour as a solo performer. And the shows I was playing at were in front of like 5 to 10 people, where I just had an opportunity to play in front of like 50,000 people, and I turned it down to go play these shows for nobody basically, and spend like all the money that I had at the time to travel. So we're going through Memphis before I had this experience, and it was around 2 a.m. and this is prior to the experience I'm getting at, but I just wanted to give you a little lead in. And in Memphis, Tennessee, there's certain places that are maybe a little bit different that maybe you shouldn't be traveling through at 2 a.m., but there was a 4-lane road, like a highway. And on one lane on each side, there was people out in the street partying. So it turned the 4-lane street into a 2-lane street. So I veer over one lane, and as I do that, I have individuals trying to block me from being able to drive through. And so basically, I swerve in between a bunch of people that are all carrying bottles, drinking around 2 a.m. that want me to stop my RV. And I'm rolling with, $10,000, $20,000 worth of music gear. I should have just brought like an acoustic guitar, but I brought like everything. I had a PA on me. I mean, it was nice having your own bathroom on wheels is what I call it. I could take a shower in there or whatever, even if it was just with a bucket. And so that was a little bit freaky, got my blood pumping, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not comfortable to pull over and sleep, which usually we would just pull over at a Walmart or wherever and sleep somewhere. So we keep traveling, and we get into Mississippi, and all of a sudden, I go over this railroad tracks. This comes right back to the caboose. This is what I'm got chills right now. It's freaking me out. But the railroad tracks, part of his story is what really brought this up. We go over the railroad tracks, and as soon as we went over the railroad tracks, I felt this presence go through my body and stay inside my body, and then it felt like it was behind me. Like, I'm tearing up a little bit. It literally felt like it was in the RV with us. And the person with me had a similar experience of feeling like something went through us and stayed inside the RV with us. And at this point, I'm pretty much freaking out, and I'm like, we've got to find a place to park. I can't even drive. I'm crying. I couldn't control it. I wasn't sad. I wasn't happy cry. It was just tears were coming out of me. And I just felt this overwhelming emotion. And I also felt this, you need to make a choice. And I felt like that choice was, if you want to be a musician and you want to do this for the rest of your life and you want to do this for a living and you want to be famous or whatever it is, you need to sell your soul. I straight up, I felt that. And it was scary. It was dark. I felt it was very dark. And so on the way to a Walmart, I put it into my phone, search for Walmart. I have my ex-girlfriend look on her phone while I'm driving the RV because I didn't want to stop. I was scared from the experience in Memphis. And at this point, and I've got pretty tough skin from, working at biker bars, being a biker myself. I've got pretty tough skin, and I was freaked out. And I asked her to, just look at our location. Is there anything out of ordinary? Well, those railroad tracks that we went over were right by the crossroads where Robert Johnson sold his soul to the devil to play blues guitar.
Oh, that gave me cool chill bumps.
Yeah, and
same place.
It was literally, it wasn't the exact same intersection, but literally we were within like the area to where I personally feel like either something in that dark realm came in and invited us in, or I invited it in by being so open to whatever was going on. Or maybe if there's a part of Robert Johnson still there, maybe he visited. And then I felt like when we got to the Walmart and we figured out what was going on and we put it 2 and 2 together, and I really still believe that has something to do with the crossroads, I felt like it left. But at that point, I couldn't drive. I was drained. I just emotionally, we had to stay at this Walmart parking lot. And of course, this particular Walmart says no overnight camping. So I just took the risk, and I was like, I'm not driving for the night. I'm waiting until tomorrow. So the next day, I get in the RV, and we were talking about this situation. I might have went on Facebook Live and talked about it. I'm not really sure. It was pretty uncomfortable to go through and kind of embarrassing to talk about, in a sense. It sounds like you're crazy, It was definitely a weird situation. So I get out on the road, and I notice I'm on Highway 61. Well, I believe it's 49 and 61 where the intersect was the crossroad. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's the one. And we were basically right there when I had the experience, but we went over the railroad tracks when we had the experience. And so, like, within a few miles, there's a blues museum. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop at this blues museum. I've got to talk to somebody about this experience. So we get there, and the guy working there, really cool dude. We just start talking. He's like, I need to call somebody. And so he calls somebody up, and this guy he calls up comes down, and his dad was in a famous blues band, and he played bass for him. And I told him the story, and he wanted to jam with me after we talked. So we ended up playing for like a few hours together. He played my guitar, I played his, and we traded off and back and forth. And we just had a really good experience. And actually, he gave me his slide. So I have his slide still to this day in this room from that day.
Oh, a guitar slide.
Yeah, like a glass.
Steel guitar.
No, they use it for blues. It's just a glass.
Oh, you're talking about the slide itself, not a steel guitar.
Yeah, so he gave me that, and we connected on a whole new level,
Right. Yeah, strange. It made my legs feel like fizzies when you talked about it. And when I get close to what's real, a lot of times I get the cold chill bumps and the fizzies, and it's an emotion that just goes throughout your whole body. I learned that from when the greatest time that happened was with the Shaker lady when she was in a hospital. But we'll talk about that time another time. But that's when I think she's the one that opened me up to more spiritual things that are out there. But we don't want to sell our souls to the dark side. We want to stay in the light. Nothing's worth going that other direction at all. So
I just had to share that, and now that I've shared that, I can get on with. I wanted to talk a little bit about the schedule that we had this week on the channel. So on Monday this week, I released a bunch of covers. So back in 2016, I was putting together an EP with the band Doggerside, and it was Sean Kirkendall, the piano man, and Christopher Johnson on drums, and obviously Sean was singing and playing keyboards and also playing bass on his keyboards. And like we'd play rock shows, he'd just play the keyboard bass. It worked out really well. Anyways, I released 2 tracks from I was looking through my music and I found this old demo we recorded, and we never released. We were in the middle of recording, and I don't know how this music just fell through the cracks. So I released on Monday a cover of me doing the Nirvana song In Bloom with them backing me up. And I mean, it's not the greatest cover, but I think it's pretty cool. It's a neat song. And then the other song I released was Sex and Candy by Marcy Playground, and that was on Tuesday. Good. And that song is with Sean singing and playing piano. I'm playing lead guitar, and then obviously we have Chris Johnson playing the drums, and he actually plays a little bit of slap bass in that song. That recording sounded really good. And then on Wednesday, I found this random recording of us playing at Vaughn's house in his garage. He's got a big shop, and Christopher Johnson was playing a cover of A Perfect Circle song, The Noose, and that's a really good song I released. And then today, I had something else I was going to release, and I ended up changing it, and in the middle of the night, I put together a little a relaxing video from some footage that I found from Washaway Beach and Ruby Beach. And if you watch it, it's titled, actually, I don't know exactly what it's titled, Experience Ruby Beach and Washaway Beach and Relax. It's a very relaxing piece. It's got a little bit of motorcycle stuff in there, but mainly it's just the ocean, and it doesn't have any music. It's just the audio from the ocean, and it's Mother Nature's song playing back to you. So it's really relaxing. Eventually, I'd like to release some meditative videos on this channel that are more stationary videos, where this video's got some stationary plots on it, but it also has a little bit of, realism, where I'm walking around with a camera and I'm not really trying to keep it. I mean, I'm trying to keep it from shaking all over the place, but I also want you to experience how I experienced it. So how I experienced it is I was walking through if you're at Ruby Beach, you're walking through the rocks, so you hear the rocks crunch. I really think that's an important part of the experience. Right. And then at the very end, I just got this GoPro. A wave came in unexpectedly and took my GoPro out. And if you watch the video to the end, it's worth it, because that's like the best part of the whole video. And then, and then Saturday, so that'll be yesterday because you're watching today on Sunday, I released 9. And that is the music video from whenever we did our tour down to the Integratron and had quite the adventure there. We actually, we were recording a song. We were staying in Malibu. We were recording a song with Bill Mann, speaker of Green Jello. And we ended up, Bill had an idea for us to do some Green Jello Vision live videos for his, he has a channel and a ton of followers. So we agreed to it, and we went down to the Integratron. And when we got there, it was during the day, and my dad and at the time my drummer, they couldn't actually hike the mountain, and there's this an actual imprint of an alien head that has been there for thousands of years, and I was on the search to try to find this and then take a photo of it. That was like the whole goal. And I actually didn't find it until later, after we had already went there, and then I was able to figure out where it was. And I was actually I went on the wrong side of the hill. So you want to go to the right or past the actual big giant rock, they call it, that's split in half. Right. And there's these crystals, and you're right by the San Andreas fault line. And these crystals lead you to the spot to the left. It's got a lot of climbing spots, and that's where the alien head is in a rock. Well, I went right from giant rock up. this mountain with my guitar case, my Gibson at the time, so I get some film footage, which you'll see on this this video of me performing that song. And it was, I mean, there was straight up stuff for mountain or rock climbing where you're supposed to like tie yourself up on these rocks. Well, I didn't have any of that, so I was just clipping myself up and then climbing up, and that was quite the experience. And then that night when we had these individuals show up, and they were in a Baja Bug, and they were doing donuts around us. And then after they did these donuts around us, they were like trying to scare us away, I'm sure. They finally came in and they talked to us. And after they had talked to us for a little bit, we got the bad vibe. And they were being really sketchy. And they were super drunk. So we took off out of there. And I actually, I bottomed out a few times, which caused a couple holes in the gas tank. So we ended up being stuck out of the ducks out of water there for a minute and had to do a roadside repair. But on our way out of there, and a lot of people say that owls are connected to aliens. Do you remember the size of that white owl that we seen?
Oh, it was huge.
It was huge. It was the biggest owl I've ever seen in my life. It was wingspan 6 feet at least. It was a huge owl when we left there. And it was just a creepy experience, but I'm glad that we did it. And besides that, I've been, that was basically what we got going on. And let's move on to the real estate.
Well, one thing back onto that was what brought us out there in the desert was someone had showed us a bunch of pictures of these orbs as they were coming out of the rocks.
That was Bill, yeah.
Yeah, Bill had showed us this. He showed it to me on his phone, and a real nice gentleman and stuff. But he showed me those orbs, and I wanted to see those and see if we could become in touch with them. And right there, I got the fizzies going again. So I didn't actually be able to see them in the sense of physically, but I know that they were there, and I felt them at the time.
Rad. So. Yeah, I never saw any orbs. I definitely got creeped out by the people that showed up in the buggy, though.
It was scary.
That was super creepy. And then I remember we went and had Denny's that night.
Right. And the story about the man that lived under the giant rock, it was after World War II. The guy had some German ancestry, and the community came out after the war, and they blew him up with TNT.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He was living under there. And then also the guy that built the Integratron, if I remember right, he actually, it was like an airfield right there at Giant Rock. So people would fly in, and he had had a lot of experiences with aliens right there at the Giant Rock airfield. And so he built the Integratron, which is right down basically from this Giant Rock. And the Integratron, you can actually you can pay to go in there and spend the night, I believe, or spend time in there. And it's set up to where you can actually communicate with the aliens, is what it's said.
Right. And it dates back to the 1920s. They were having gatherings of 17,000, 20,000 people there. So it had a lot of energy going on. And I think it has to do with the fault line. And then it is a place where aliens have been seen. So now we can go to the real estate.
Yeah, now that we talked about all the weird stuff.
Yeah. So we left off last time with being able to find properties using the assessor's office and that information. One thing to remember is every year, a lot of people are aware of tax sales. Well, in the state of Washington, if you buy a property at a tax sale, be prepared to hold it for 3 years. The reason why is title insurances won't provide title insurance on a property from a tax sale for a period of 3 years. So if you need to move your money or something like that and think you need to sell it in case something happens right now the day after you bought it, don't be buying property at tax sales. I don't buy property at tax sales. I never have. And at this point, I'm not going to profit off somebody else's loss that way. Okay, so now we want to come to a contract. A contract is an agreement between two individuals, and it can be anything. If you're the buyer and someone else is a seller, they can write up a contract between them. You don't actually need a lawyer. You don't need a realtor, those kinds of things. But what I do is I'll come up with an agreement that's got to be fair, something that I would agree to, as well as I think that the seller would agree to with that and try to resolve an issue. Most of my sellers are out of the area because I only want to limit the amount of time that I spend looking for them. And I also got limited resources to spend. So I don't want to spend it all in postage. I want to be able to contact the people, and the best people to contact are the ones out of the area. I would suggest, after you've seen a property and you've done the comps and those kinds of things, one way to take your first look at a property would be through Google Earth. You can put in the address and then you can do a drive-by. But I made a mistake once. I bought a property off of Google Earth after looking at it, not going to it, and I ended up taking 40 yards of garbage after I bought it off of it. And I had to have the dumpsters come in and people had to haul that stuff away. So make sure that you personally see the property before you buy it, not a Google Earth.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So did you see the property at Washaway Beach before you bought it?
I knew I bought a property at Washaway Beach. I paid $100 for it. It had washed away. And then I paid $70 to record it, but I don't pay any taxes on it. And at some time in the future, if the Washaway Beach starts to accumulate soil back again, I could have beachfront. But I've got tidelands now, and it used to be like a carport or RV dump, and it was a property that was worth about $58,000. And once it washed away, that was it. The wash away was caused, and I'll talk about that. That has to do with the Columbia River and the dams that are on it. But I think I'll talk about that a little bit later and go back to a real estate contract. So the real estate contract, what you want to do is anytime you get a property, you want to get a statutory warranty deed once it's paid off. That means it's free of all encumbrances. You don't have anything against it except what's agreeable at closing. Okay? Get a statutory warranty deed. I like to, if I'm buying on a contract, I like a note secured by a deed of trust, because a deed of trust means they had to have the deed to be able to sell it. If I bought on a real estate contract, that seller you could be assuming a contract of assume. You too many people involved, something can go wrong. You want direct contact, and you don't want to be assuming that on an individual contract. However, you can take over an FHA contract if you come up with a buyer and there's a house there. You can assume they're alone, and a lot of people don't know that when they're selling their house. So you got somebody that's in trouble selling their house, you can assume an FHA loan. The other thing too is once I come up with the agreement, and if it's a lot, the assessed value is $38,000. The market is what they've been selling them for. Could have been all the way up to $42,000 to $48,000. I'm going to offer about $14,000, approximately, cash, if they want cash. And the reason why is, unless you're building a house, you can't get cash for your lot. So the true value of your lots, if they're all on the market at the same time, the assessor, if everybody had everything for sale, do you think your property would be assessed for what it's assessed for? The answer is no. So what it's worth is what it's worth today, wholesale, what you can pay, because to buy something, your money has to work for you. A lot of times people have been trying to sell a property for years and they haven't been able to. So here's a way out for them. Also, if you don't have the cash, I'll give them a little more money. But I could, what I would do is I would cover the closing costs. I would also, once I have the agreement signed between the parties, I will hire an attorney and not a title company. I'll have the attorney he'll go through the paperwork once again, and you'll split the cost of the escrow for the attorney with the buyer and seller. The attorney I use, it's now $900, so that would cost you $450 and $450. Yeah, the attorney works for both the buyer and the seller when you're doing that, and it's a lot better. Reference to title insurance, if you can get a statutory warranty deed, why do you need title insurance? Statutory warranty deed, it says it's clear of all liens. So if you do go down to the auditor's office and then you check the title, and you can ask for their assistance. Usually all the counties with the auditors and stuff like that. So when you go to the auditor's office, they will help because they're kind of a consumer-oriented place. Also, the assessor's office provides the assessments for how the county's going to run. The treasurer then does the mill rate and assesses how much of a mill rate you're going to get on the property. And then the auditor does all the recording. That's how those three systems work. And the lawyer, when you get a lawyer, you get a third eye. And they watch out for the interests of both people. Anytime you know any pertinent fact, and a pertinent fact would be any fact at all, you need to disclose that to the buyer. And when you're buying something, that seller needs to disclose that to you. Be completely honest. This is a time that fibs don't count. A lack of telling something that you know, that's considered a lie. If you know it, tell it. Or if you should know it, well, you better go find out. So the next thing is when you're getting a hard value on a piece of property, is it hooked up to sewer, water, utilities? Is this property for going to be a residential lot that you're going to sell it to another house? Is it a camping site? Is it farmland? You need to figure out those kinds of things. Now, if it's you're going to need a septic tank for a on-site sewage system, you probably need a soil test to see what kind of soils you're going to have. And then you could go and once you got the soil test, you'd hire an engineer. The engineer will tell you what type of a septic system it would cost and can give you a rough idea what those costs are. You go to the county and you get a list of contractors that are licensed through that county for on-site sewage. You can also, as an owner, as long as you have an engineer, you can put in your own system. So, but you just do that for yourself. You can't do that for someone else. But your engineer specified exactly how you do it. As long as you put it down just the way it's written on paper, no problem. You'll save yourself thousands and thousands of tens of thousands of dollars by doing it yourself. The next thing is the cost of utilities, power. If power's been put in recently, there might be an individual on that road that's paid for the transformer, and you're going to have to pay that person that paid for that transformer a certain percentage back, depending on how many years it's been. Usually it's 5 years, and the figures go down by year till at the end of 5 years, you don't get nothing paid back. Then if you need a transformer, it's all on you, and you'll pay all the added costs for that. I stay away from homeowners associations because most homeowners associations also have like utility fees. Fees to repair the road, whether you're there or not, whether you use the water or not. And they can run from anywhere from $25 a month to I've seen them for $175 a month. I stay away from homeowners associations as a rule. However, I have bought properties in certain homeowners associations, but given the facts.
Just to throw this in on the HOAs, I feel like it's not American in the sense of we're supposed to be in a free country, and let's say you buy a house and there's a homeowners association, you don't get to make the decisions of what color your house is going to be, right, or how you want. Maybe you want your yard to be tall. Maybe you want tall grass. Maybe you want something this or that, or 8 cars in your driveway. I just feel like that is such an un-American thing for me. I don't think I could ever live in that kind of environment. And if I did, I would rebel against it.
That's why people move to Texas. I understand Texas, it's wide open, unless you're in a city or something.
Texas is beautiful.
Yeah, Texas is wide open. There is no thought. However, it does have its detriments because then somebody could come in and put 450 cars right next to your, 5 acres, and it's going to affect your costs, whether or not, you got oil problems and those kinds of issues. So there's both sides to each story. The other thing too is when you're setting you got to have water. And if the water is not public's easier to finance because of the water testing and that. You can have a well, and in a well is usually 2 residents for non-residential, or not for residential but not commercial, on one well. However, when you're putting in your septic tank, your leach field's got to be 100 feet away. So you got to make sure when you buy a piece of property, where are you going to put your septic tank and where are you going to pump your effluents to? And you can talk to your engineer about that. That's why you do with the engineer right in the beginning. And and you might be right up against somebody else that's got a vacant lot, and you got a vacant lot. Now there's 2 vacant lots, but if I put in my septic system now, that future person that's got a lot may not be able to because they can't get the setback now. You don't want to be that person that can't. So even though there's septic tanks in the area, doesn't necessarily mean you can put one there. And by you putting one there may also restrict the neighbor from putting one on their place after you put it there. So it's always changing. So the value of the property next to your property would technically go down at that point because you would have to have adjoining property or some way else of being able to take care of affluence. So a survey is important. You actually, at the time you get ready to build, you need to know your corners. And you need to know where your septic system is going to be, and it needs to be all flagged out. And it's better when you're going out and bidding for the certain projects that you get that done right up front. And you can put these on as contingencies because sometimes if you're buying a larger piece of property, it's nothing to have like a neighbor 100 feet over. If I just bought say I had bought 120 acres, and then the neighbor's 100 feet over on my side. Well, I want to resolve that 100 feet. And know about it. I want to see what the survey is. And you can go in and look up. The surveys are recorded with the Department of Natural Resources, and you can find out that are certified. And those certified survey is a legal survey, and that's the only one you want to look at. So that's where you'll find out the survey information. So that kind of tells you about that. In reference to price, you want to come up with a term. If I'm offering a contract, I would go closer to assessed value, because you're not giving them any money, so you're going to give them a little bit more money in the end. Anywhere from an interest rate of 8% down to 5.5%. But I'd buy on 5.5 and I'd sell on 8, especially if I'm putting money out of my pocket. The more money you put out of your pocket, the lower the interest rate could be. But you can also give people opportunities. By selling on a note secured by deed of trust, you would have a foreclosure clause in there where if they're 120 days past due, you get the property back. They can do a deed in lieu of foreclosure, so you don't have to go through a court action. That can be included in there. Everything I have to say, though, this is for entertainment purposes only, and it's up to you to really do an investigation to make sure that this is going to be right for you. And you can only sue me for what we've charged, and this is a free service. So this is just my disclosure. I'm not getting in trouble on that because I'm not a lawyer.
Well,
I'm not a real estate agent.
You just gave him an invitation to sue you. You can,
No, but I think with anybody, no one's going to sue me because of what I'm doing is right, but I don't want that to happen. That was my disclosure for that. So main thing, be fair. I'd make my contracts non-assumable. So that means when you started paying, when you got time to pay off the loan or you sold the property, that person that sold it to you would be paid off. You can also put where you could actually have an assumption clause in there upon the seller's agreement. If the person had a certain credit score, they could assume your contract. That's kind of a positive one. If you don't have the money to pay it off, but you're looking at maybe making a few $1,000s, so you'd buy the property, put it up for sale. I'd hold the property for 18 months anyway, because of the long-term gains and those kinds of things. You're building yourself passive income, and that's what I liked about contracts. And you can also do that with your commissions, that are there too. And you can sell on a note secured by a deed of trust. If you bought the property right, the down payment would pay off your mortgage and put you in a first position, which I've done several times. And then I own the property outright. I don't lien the property. I have it all recorded at the courthouse. I have the lawyer draws up. It's a gift deed at the end where you'll have your statutory warranty deed. So that's taken care of. So you pay it off, you get it. And normally if you go build a house, I'm going to get paid off. Or you're going to sell it to somebody. It works both ways. And if you don't pay for it, I'll end up getting it back and then end up selling it for more money. But I've only had, in my whole life, and I've bought, 45 properties, 50 properties. I've only taken back 2 properties in my whole life out of 45 or 50 properties.
I still regret not taking the opportunity, even though I don't want to be in Yelm. He actually, Dad offered me an opportunity to buy a property from him in Yelm. And I believe it was an HOA, though.
It was.
And that was, honestly, one of the reasons I was like, I don't want to live in Washington State. I mean, I love Washington State, but that's like maximum Washington State. It's like Washington State behind the walls. It's like being a prisoner within the system, which is kind of crazy to me.
They actually, at that place, was only $60 a month. And that was water. And when you consider what the city charges you for water, that was pretty reasonable.
So here's a quick question. whenever you had offered it to me, what would the value been then compared to the value of it is
Well,
now?
I offered you a pretty sweet deal. That same property now, it's worth more. It's worth. I sold it to the person I sold it to. I sold it to him for $20,500. Today, it's worth about $43,000, and he's had it for about 2.5 to 3 years.
Wow.
That's how fast properties have gone up. And when I buy a property, I sell it for the appraised value, and it was valued at that. But properties are just going up. And when I go out, I do a lot of research, and I might make, I don't know, 80 to 140 offers before I buy something.
That's how I work too. Like
Right.
if I'm gonna buy something, I don't have a huge budget. I'm a collector. I do collect motorcycles, music gear. I might make 1,000 offers before I find a deal that's worth throwing in my garage, and it's worth it for me to communicate that many times to be able to find a deal. And that's how I have some of the stuff that I have now. I couldn't have afforded to get it without that. And honestly, sometimes for me, when somebody offers me a deal like that, and I know that they're going to use this item, or this is something that they really want and they're excited about it, I'm more willing to give them a deal than I would rather sell something for a deal to somebody if I know they're going to enjoy something than to sell something for more and know it's not going to get used or this or that. So that for me as a seller, I'd be excited to be able to provide something that is going to get use out of it. And I think a lot of the times with a deal that is out there, somebody just wants to see this property be used or see this motorcycle be driven. And that's, or like he was saying on our last episode, there's a lot of times when you go buy a property and the owner lives out of state and they're paying taxes on this, and maybe they lived here and they moved to Texas because of the HOAs and they want to get to a free state. And they're just like, this is what's tying me to that place still, and they're able to wash their hands of it. So I think that it's an opportunity for both parties, even if it's a better deal.
Yeah, there's two things to remember. Always tell the truth and find out why they're selling it. And if you're not giving them what they want, tell them why you're not giving it to them and the reason why. And also, if they're patient, you wish them the best of luck to be able to find somebody that can pay exactly what they want. Because that doesn't determine whether or not you're going to buy or not. But you can only buy for a certain amount. Somebody else can buy for more, and you'd hope they could. But if they can't wait, or they decide, no, I'm done with it, you resolve an issue, bad thoughts, bad karma. There's all kinds of things that come with a piece of property, why people would want to get rid of it. And a lot has to do with just changing your life. So you're part of that change. And I like also providing people with a new place. You see such happiness and families coming together. I had one place, it was 1.25 acres in Aberdeen, and I sold it for, I don't know, $31,000. Today, it's probably, they put a cabin on it, and it's probably worth $99,000. And he's got probably less than $50,000 in it. And that's 3.5 years ago.
That's pretty amazing.
You know, how he can make so much money on that. And he had a little creek where you get a little creek. One thing about creeks, you need to get a soil scientist or somebody about that can do your setbacks for water to know whether or not where you're going to put that septic tank. So I look for stuff without water as a lot easier to deal with than with water. Or if you buy adjoining properties, you can put one septic system on 2 lots to serve 2 different homes.
Speaking of water, you also need to look and make sure that it hasn't been flooded. We have seen a lot of flooding lately in the Chehalis Centralia area, and also in Aberdeen, there's been a lot of flooding on the south side. I found this interesting. Whenever you're leaving Aberdeen or coming into Aberdeen to go towards Westport, there's a house that was pretty much almost underwater. They had to have water in their house. And right after this flood that we just had, they have a for sale sign in their yard within a week.
Yeah, well, Clinton and I have both been helicoptered once. Clint's stepmom has been helicoptered twice. And I saw that they had our old farm for sale in Montesano off on Minkler Road, talking about all this good stuff. Well, I went out about a week ago on Friday, and I went out on Saturday, and the water was all the way to the gate, and you couldn't even get into it. But it didn't mention nothing about flooding on the ad on Craigslist, and the realtor had it listed for $289,000.
So it's probably, even a realtor, or if you're selling your personal property, I think it's important to be upfront about these things.
Right.
Even if you're going to make money on it, and that's your maximum thing you're trying to do, like Dad was talking about karma, I think it's important to be upfront about these things, because somebody might actually want it that's not worried about the flooding, or
Right.
And also, it can really affect somebody's life. Like whenever we lived there, I was in 7th grade and we got helicoptered out, and I'll never forget it. Whenever the helicopter landed, it was homecoming, I believe. And here I am in my underwear, going out of a helicopter to a aid unit. And there's basically all my peers I go to school with.
Grade school.
It was pretty embarrassing, but it was also, everybody had a good laugh. So It was something that they remembered me at Montesano High School, because actually the high school, Montesano, and junior high are together. And to move on a little bit, I would like to talk a little bit about the whole COVID thing going on. And I've been noticing a lot of shows getting canceled, which I totally understand. With this new variant going on, people don't want to get sick, and it's just something that people really are worried about. Well, these bigger cities are putting some mandates in where certain people aren't going to get to go to the show because they either, one, you have to be tested, or you have to have a vaccine, which I personally think the vaccine's a great thing. Testing's a great thing. But I also believe in the freedom of choice. I think that that's an important thing. And we're excluding people from being able to go do things, which is a little upsetting. And one way to get around all this is support your small local businesses. Small towns and small bars, small venues, they're still holding local music. They've been keeping music alive this whole time. When there isn't a spot to play in the big city, and your band that was sold out, whatever venue it is in Seattle, instead of not performing, I think there's something about actually supporting a small mom and pop bar and grill and going and playing. There's no venue too small for a musician, in my opinion. I think that no matter how famous you are, or how popular you are, there's something that about going and playing a small venue and supporting a small business. And I think that that's important. Maybe if you have too many fans for the venue, sell tickets and do it 4 nights or 2 weekends or whatever it is. Or, wait until you feel comfortable. Obviously, I don't want anyone doing anything they're not comfortable with. For me personally, I've had my vaccine, I've had my booster. I feel comfortable with it. And if you haven't had those and you feel comfortable with it, then you're comfortable with it. It's all about our personal comfort zones of how we feel, and the people that come out to see us play as well. We are taking a risk, but also there's a lot of risks. Every time we get in a car, the flu, the common cold, there's all kinds of risks in this life. And I believe that we really need to move on from where we're at with the COVID, because we do have these different tools, and it's time to just do things and live our life. And I also wanted to just touch base real quick with the movie update, because we didn't actually talk about the movie. And on our last episode, we said we were going to. So I've got some work to do to edit it down. I've thought about re-editing it. I have a bunch of different ideas. So basically, we're going to go through all these different ideas, and eventually we are going to release Porthole Adventures on this channel. And I was thinking about maybe just doing like 10-minute episodes and doing smaller versions of it. So weekly videos, maybe for like 2 or 3 months when we're ready to do that. And then also, I'm looking at here in the near future, I'm going to upgrade my camera gear. I plan on upgrading my computer so that I can actually handle doing 4K and bigger videos. Because right now, just this podcast is really taking on basically everything my computer can handle. And I have a new MacBook Pro. It's just not made for this style of what we're doing. But as we go, we're going to start growing, and we have been growing on the views, and we're actually over our first, my first thing I was really trying to go for was I wanted to have 100 subscribers. Well, we're at 104 now, and I think that that's great. And we're just working on trying to grow this episode and this podcast for you guys. And thanks for watching. And this is the Ron and Son podcast. And my name's Clinton.
And I'm Ron.
Thanks for tuning in.
Come back soon.
And episode 3, it was great to have you. We'll be back next week, every Sunday.
Bye.